We recommend this product be installed by a competent gunsmith.
Modification of your firearm may nullify the warranty of the firearm's manufacturer.
No liability is expressed or implied for damage or injury which may occur from improper use or installation of this product.
You are responsible for the safe handling, legalities, and use of your firearm.
Warning: always wear safety glasses when working on firearms. Hi guys, Scott Folk here from Apex Tactical Specialties to walk you through the installation of our duty carry kit for the Smith Wesson J-Frame revolvers. This kit is so hugely popular because of the performance enhancement you get with it that we decided we had to reshoot a new video. We wanted to give you a little closer look and a little better detail on the insides of the gun. So let's get started. For this installation, you're going to need a flat blade screwdriver. Make sure whatever tip you get fits the screws in your revolver frame very well. You don't want to go too wide or too narrow. Some gun oil, a pair of needle nose pliers, and a rebound slide removal tool. I want to start off with a cautionary tale about the tools to use for this job. I mentioned the screwdriver needing to fit the screws. What I mean by that is the screwdriver fits rotationally pretty snug in the screw, and there's not a lot of slop side to side. If you go hang over the edge, you get an idiot mark. You get the little ring that goes around the hole. That looks like crap. In fact, I can show you right here, this is my personal gun. I have a mark right there where the screwdriver slipped. So be cautious, use a screwdriver that fits the slot really well, bury it nice and deep, and turn the screw little bits at a time, like a quarter turn at a time, until you get it all the way out or in, to make sure you don't damage the frame. The first thing we're going to do when we go to install our J-Frame kit, of course, is make sure the cylinder is unloaded. We're going to leave the cylinder in the frame for the install because it makes it easier to do things. So with it verified unloaded, I'll go ahead and take it, get the screws out of the side plate here. I'm going to bury the screwdriver in and make sure I get those things nice and removed so I don't scratch the frame up and do any more damage than I've already done. So I'll get these guys out and then we'll take the side plate off. To remove the side plate off your revolver, and this goes for any Smith & Wesson revolver, never ever pry in here to take that side plate off. That's a bad idea. What I recommend doing is I put my finger on the end of the plate and I kind of pull up, and I'll use the handle of my screwdriver to tap the grip. And that allows me to remove the side plate and pull it out of the way without doing any damage to the inside of the frame or bending the side plate. In this case, I don't have the factory springs installed. I've got our kit already installed, so we're just doing a disassembly and reassembly, showing you what it looks like to do it. My preferred method to remove the mainspring is very simple. With the gun again unloaded, I'll hold my thumb over the end of the rod here, and I'll press up from the back side, and I'll pop the cap out of the frame into my hand so I can detension the spring. Then I can fish the spring out off the frame, and then I can pull the mainspring strut out of the hammer and have it removed out of the way. Next, we're going to remove the hammer from the frame. Relatively straightforward. With the mainspring removed, we'll go ahead and pull the trigger. Sometimes you need to hold the advancing hand down while you pull the trigger with the side plate off. I'll bring the hammer all the way back so it's out of the way, and then I'll turn it over. I should be able to drop it right out of the frame like so. Relieve the trigger pressure slowly so nothing goes flying. And now I can remove the rebound slide spring. Using the rebound slide tool, I'll come in here and I'll compress that spring a little bit, and I'll slide that guy up. I'll have to put my finger over the end, so you're gonna lose view here for a second. But as I come up, I'll be able to release tension, and I can pull the trigger back ever so slightly, pull the spring and the rebound slide out, and now we can replace the parts. The next thing we have to do is remove the firing pin and retaining pin. So I'll grab onto the firing pin, retaining pin with my pair of pliers, get a good grip on it, press just ever so slightly on the firing pin, and then pull the pin out. Relieve tension. I can set that pin aside, and then I can pull the pin out of the frame. Sometimes I compress it and let it pop back to get it out of the way. As you can see, I've removed the firing pin, but I need to make sure the firing pin return spring is out. So I'm gonna go with my pin punch and kind of fish that guy out of there. Make sure it comes out, make sure you remove that. If you have two of them in there, it will cause light strikes. You don't want that. So make sure that channel is clear before you put the new firing pin and return spring in position. Let's go over the kit components before we reinstall. You have the firing pin return spring and the firing pin itself, rebound slide spring, and mainspring. When the whole kit's installed, you'll have a trigger pull roughly 2.5 to 3 pounds lighter than factory. Installation of the kit is just an absolute reverse of the removal process. So I'll take the firing pin with the return spring already on it, and I'll set that into the frame. Try to get that little guy in there, and I'll use my pin punch to put it in position. Once I have it in position, I'll take my pin, put it on top, press the firing pin in place, set that guy down, and I'll make sure that I have protrusion into the breech. So if I rotate it here, you'll see the firing pin protrudes into the breech just like we want it to. Before you reinstall the rebound slide, you want to make sure you lubricate it. I'll put some oil on the side where it contacts the frame, where the dots are. Some oil on the bottom as well. I'll also put some oil on the top on the little bump there. And then we can put the spring in and put it back in the frame. When I go to install the rebound slide, I've got the spring already dropped into the back. I'm going to put that against the bottom of the frame, slide it forward, and I'm going to make sure it engages the trigger bar on the back of the trigger. It should kind of lock itself in pretty easily. You want the pin into the notch on the back of the rebound slide. From here, I'll take my rebound slide tool, put my finger on top, and this is where it gets kind of dangerous. I'm going to compress the spring into the rebound slide and drop it right over the pin, just like that. This is where it gets dangerous, because if you slip, you can stick yourself in the finger. So be very cautious. You might do it with your finger out of the way and try to push it so you don't hit yourself. Before we reinstall the hammer, we want to lubricate that as well. I'll put some oil around the hole on both sides of the hammer face, because that was where it hits the frame, as well as the bottom locking surface down here. Just a few drops is all it really takes. So once I have the hammer removed, I'm going to press the trigger back and hold it all the way to the rear. I'll take the hammer in the all the way cocked back position, essentially, set it over the hole in the frame, and I should be able just to kind of touch it. And it'll go, drop itself into position here and kind of fall in. Once it's all the way down, I hold it down and then I'll release the trigger lightly and let it go back into position. This is proper function. We're going to take the mainspring strut and add some lubricant to it. We'll put a little bit of oil on the sides and then also on the end as well. Want to make sure we get plenty of oil on there. This will make sure the action is nice and smooth. With the mainspring strut inside the mainspring, I'm going to go ahead and set it into the half moon shape on the back of the hammer. You'll notice that it goes in, but it doesn't seat all the way down. And that's because it's not in the right position to go in, which is fine. It'll sit right there. It'll lock itself in a minute. I'll pick up the frame. I'm going to pull tension on the mainspring itself. I'll put the boot on the bottom, and then I'll compress it as I push it into the frame and lock it in position. So what you'll see here is the mainspring isn't quite into the hammer. That's fine. We'll come up from the bottom, get a little push upward, maybe a little help with the pin punch here, kind of pop it up, and now you can see it seats into the hammer just fine. Doesn't take much to move it around, so if you have to pry a lot, you're doing it wrong. Just kind of maneuver it around, it'll pop up and into position. Before we close up, I want to do a quick review to make sure everything is in place and looks right. We're going to make sure the mainspring is in place with the boot, as well as seated into the hammer, completely into that half moon hole. We're going to make sure the rebound slide and spring are in place and all the way down. The advancing hand is down against the trigger, right where it's supposed to be, and that the firing pin and retaining pin are in place as they need to be. Now we can put the side plate back on and put the screws back in. Reinstalling the screws is your greatest chance to do some damage to the frame, so you need to be very cautious. Put your screwdriver in, make sure you're centered on that screw body, and carefully turn it. As you'll notice here, I was kind of off center. So as I go, I'm going to go really careful until my screw body is all the way into the frame. Once I touch down, I'll seat it, give a little bit of torque. They need to be snug. You don't want to crank them on or you can break a screw head off. This is how you prevent damaging the hole when you put the screw back in. After we put our side plate screws in and everything's finished, we're going to go ahead and do a quick dry fire to make sure it's functioning properly. All I'm going to do, verify it's unloaded. I'll pull the trigger, I get a strike, release, strike again, all the way across. When you do dry fire your revolver after an install, check the number of dry fires to match the amount of rounds you have in a cylinder. So if you have 5-round cylinder, 5 dry fires, 6-round cylinder, 6 dry fires. The idea is that advancing hand has to go over the ratchets on every single reset, so you have to make sure all of them work properly, not just 1 or 2. With the side plate reinstalled and the grips back on, we're ready to go to the range. I realize disassembling a revolver seems like a very daunting task, but as you saw in the video, it's pretty straightforward. Use the proper tools and proper lubrication. This is one of our most popular kits because of the performance enhancement it gives you and takes about 2.5 to 3 pounds off the trigger pull. If you have any questions or problems during the installation process, call customer service. We're here to help.